So I decided to make a quick recording because I just had an idea. I'm at the part
He just wants to be free.
where we
Peace
free
wants to be
Garm,
behind him. Trust
okay?
me.
And the mask is going crazy, right? The mask led me to this spot. Now here's the thing. The other piece of the mask is not here though. And it started me thinking. The mask is connected to the weird mysterious crack underneath Odin's lodge. You need to be you need to put on, theoretically you need to wear the mask and so you're able to then look into the crack. Now I started thinking, I'm like, the crack, which I wish I could bring up, but I'm just in the middle of playing a game. So the crack looks strikingly similar to the tears that Garm makes. After you free him, spoilers for anybody that's not played this game, but when you free Garm, he's able to, use his claws to rip open or tear open um, openings to other realms, and or to the same realm, just in a different location. And you can jump through, or he can jump through. Now, when the tear opens, of course, it's just you know like a big portal. But while it's a crack, the same light and stuff it emits looks like the crack that is under Odin's lodge, the one that he desperately wants to look into. And I started thinking, I'm like, why would the mask lead us here? The mask is leading us here. Well, the mask is connected to the crack. If it led us here, but the other piece of the mask is not here, then that must mean, for some odd reason, or to me anyway, that Garm is connected to the mask. And I know, like I said, this probably ain't the truth because, when he rips open or tears open a portal, first it slices and then it expands into like the dark black, blue, whatever portal that you can then step through or whatever. The crack underneath Odin's Lodge is just a crack. It's almost as if it was made by Garm, but he wasn't able to finish opening the crack. You get what I'm saying? So maybe you have to wait until it's fully open before you can step through, but when it's just barely cracked, because what he's essentially doing is opening up, like a portal to a different part of the realm you're in or a whole different realm. But it has to be completely opened. When it's just starting to be scratched open, it's not quite there. And so when Odin stuck his head in, it took his eye out because he's trying to shove his head through something that's not open. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, so if the mask is connected to the tear, and the tear was made by Garm, because like maybe the mask, because we never actually see it be used. Odin could be completely wrong. You might not need the mask to look through the. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what the whole mask thing is all about, but we know the writing on the mask is writing from nowhere in the Nine Realms. It's other lands somewhere else. The thing of it is here's the question: if Garm can open up portals to different parts of a realm you're in or to different realms, why can't he open up a portal to other lands besides the 9 realms? Like, why is he limited to just the 9 realms? You know what I mean? Like, just because Garm is here right now in Helheim, where, I mean, he can clearly go to any of the other 9 realms, but like, what is keeping him held in the 9 realms? We don't know. And as you know, spoilers again, we end up putting the soul of Fenrir into Garm, and so Garm effectively becomes Fenrir, but he's still able to do the the tearing open of a portal even after he becomes Fenrir. And we know the next God of War game is going to be in a different pantheon. But we didn't go there at the end of Ragnarok. We didn't even go there at the end of Valhalla. And Valhalla made it seem as though, Kratos' story is pretty much solidified. He's accepted the role of God of War, the 9 realms. He understands what the role entails, and he's accepted it, and he's gonna do it. But we all know, and at the end of this game, Atreus decides to go off on his own to the other lands looking for the giants. The lands outside the 9 realms. As we all know, it doesn't matter what Kratos decides to do, and if he's accepted, I'm going to be the God of War for the 9 realms, blah, blah, blah. If something happens to Atreus, if he gets into trouble, and Kratos gets wind of that, he will stop whatever he's doing and go save his son. So that is my theory as to what's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to get an Atreus centered game, maybe in the form of DLC, or maybe in the form of like a Miles Morales or a Lost Legacy type thing. I don't know. I mean, for all we know, it could just be some type of epilogue that we play in the beginning of the next God of War game. It starts and we start as Atreus or something, and we play like 3 or 4 hours of an epilogue, and then some trouble happens, blah blah blah. Now, how he would catch word of that? Well, we know Angerboda. She's able to do her own like thing of stepping in and out of realms or whatever, and she's the one keeping an eye on Fenrir for us. It's like her and Fenrir, are like pals, and Fenrir can open portals too. So maybe she decides to check up in on Atreus every now and again, and then she goes to check up in on him, finds out that he's been captured or something, and he might be put to death. And she comes back to Midgard and says, "Hey, Atreus is in trouble. We got to go." And then that's how we get to the other thing. Garm opens a thing, and there we go. Or Freyr's boat. Don't forget, we got Freyr's little folded up paper boat thing, right? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm starting to ramble. There's something with that crack in Garm. I don't think obviously Asgard was destroyed. We saw everything get sucked into the crack, even the mask, and then it like sealed itself. But I think the crack was made by Garm. It could have been made by Garm. I mean, you gotta think, Odin is the one that chained him up here, which means Odin encountered Garm sometime or another. Maybe he knew Garm can open up realms, right? But maybe you know how Odin is. He's like mean to everything. Maybe he was forcing Garm to do something. Garm, and maybe he was like, "I need you to open a portal to a different land." And Garm started to, and then stopped, and then he refused to finish, and so he chain Garm up here, and he knows exactly what the crack is, what's on the other side, but for some reason he thinks he needs the I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling again. But I know, like, the mask is connected to the tear. The tear, I think, is connected to Garm, which I think the mask is connected to Garm as well. I think that's the whole thing. I don't know what it's about, you know, but that's just what I think. Um, just a couple more things that are on my mind. I think the next mainline God of War is going to be like in the Asian slash Japanese slash Mayan slash Chinese, whatever, pantheon. I think that's where we're going next. The reason why, the evidence that tells me that is, um, first, obviously, is, you know, if you watch that interview that Eric Williams was doing, I don't know who it was with, IGN or Easy Allies or whoever it was, but they asked him, like, is there any, like, hint to where the next God of War might go? And he said something about, if you see Tyr, at the end game, he's doing these mannerisms. That's the hint. Well, if you go to all the locations that Tyr's at, he's doing different mannerisms, but I think they're all like Tai Chi or something, which is like an Asian or Japanese or whatever form of martial art or something. So that's telling. But I think what gave me the proof was, if you remember the missing Jotnar Shrine panel in God of War 2018 that you end up finding in Tyr's vault, and that has the hidden stuff appear on it by, shining Mimir's eye on it or whatever. In the four corners of that missing panel has the pantheon symbols for four different pantheons. The top right corner, I think, was the Greek pantheon. Bottom right corner was the Celtic or Norse pantheon. Bottom left was, I don't know, like Mayan or Asian. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look it up again. And the top left was Egyptian. Now, Kratos was already at the Greek pantheon. That was the top right, and he's currently in the Norse, which is the bottom right. So, if we're following the clockwise pattern that the panel has, then the next one we go to is the Asian one or whatever. And then after we get our probably two games in that pantheon, then we'll finally go to Egyptian, where I think the whole thing is supposed to come to a head. Um, so that's where I think we're going next. Also, I also want to say that I believe that see everybody. I believe Barlog is actually making the next God of War game. I know a lot of, like, hints or whatever is pointing toward him working on some kind of sci-fi game, and that's what everybody thinks. And the reason why I think he's actually making the next God of War game is because you have to think about it in a broader sense. He was working somewhere else, and Santa Monica sought him out personally to bring him back to Santa Monica for the sole purpose of reimagining, or, the franchise. You know, they said, we're gonna redo reinvent the franchise. They brought him back to do that. To me, it just doesn't make any sense that, oh, I'm gonna do one game and that's it. Now, obviously, he's the creative director. Even though Eric Williams directed Ragnarok, Barlog was still a part of it. He was the creative director, but I'm talking about actually like being like the one that sits down and like decides how it's gonna go. I think it's on him because here's the thing. He's written the entire story arc for all the games. From 2018s to this one to wherever we're going next to where we're going next, even after that. He's written it all out. It doesn't mean it won't change at some point. Maybe he might add to it or not, but that's what he did. Okay? And proof of that is because I think I watched an interview somewhere where he said that he was a fan of some TV show or something where, you know, you'd be watching like the beginning episodes of a season or something, and you would see something in the episode, and you'd be like, "Well, why are they showing me this or whatever?" And then all of a sudden, like the last episodes of the season, it would make a callback to that. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, they showed that in the and you didn't." And you're like, "That's why." And he thought that was such a good idea, and the reason why is because usually when they, write for TV, they write like one or two episodes at a time. They film it, then they write all the way to the end of the season. But the person who wrote this show wrote every episode from the beginning of the episode to the end of the season. That way he was able to put stuff that happened in the later episodes in the beginning episodes as hints. He thought that was such a good idea, he actually implemented that in his whole story arc here. And Barlog even said that in another interview, that he did after God of War 18 came out, 2018, when he was doing his round of interviews. He mentioned that. And he said, I did that to this game, talking about God of War 2018. He said, I put stuff in the game that you won't find out until later. Some things much later, other things much, much later. You know what I mean? Obviously, the one that we all know of is who blew the horn, right? We all thought we were going to get the answer to that in Ragnarok. We didn't. And then some of us assumed, like, well, because they decided to make it 2 games instead of 3, maybe they just cut out what the whole horn blowing thing. No, 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 no. That's probably one of the much, much later ones or whatever. Maybe, we're not going to get the answer to that until hopefully in this next Pantheon. But here's the thing, if we do still have to get a callback to that, that means at some point we have to come back to the Norse pantheon because we have to get the answer to who blew the horn. They're going to have to show us, whether it's actually us or, it's somebody else, but we just, witness it or whatever. And the fact that that was God of War 2018, which is all happening before Ragnarok, that also proves that there has to be some type of time shifting or time traveling mechanic or something that goes on in these games at some point. You know what I mean? Because if we're going to get the answer to who blew the horn, and the horn was blown like 4 or 5 years prior to the events of Ragnarok, then somehow, some way, we're going to be able to travel through time. You know? I think I made another theory video before. I don't know exactly what I talked about in that theory video, but I know that I think I mentioned that and some of the other things in that video about, because he said he put multiple things in the game. We all know of the who blew the horn, but it's like, what are the other things that he put into the game that we're supposed to get callbacks to? I think one of them was like some remains, some like bones, like the big, huge, like ribbed bones in the lake that you boat through. You see those in the lake, and then you see them in like an area where you fight like the second troll of the game. You see those same, and it looks like they're the remains of some world serpent. I think I had a theory on that. I won't go into it now, but I think another thing is Faye. I don't think we've done seeing about Faye. You know what I mean? think about it. We start God of War 2018 with Faye already dead, right? And in Ragnarok, we actually get to see what she looks like and meet her, but she's already ill or sick, you know. And the cutscenes where we have to like go in the boat while she's holding Atreus as a baby, you know, Kratos has to help her into the boat because she's in pain. So she's obviously sick at that time. But we also, if you've played this game, if you remember at the crater in Vanaheim, we see another frozen lightning bolt, and we find out that she actually battled Thor with the Leviathan axe and did the exact same thing. He threw his hammer, she threw the blade or whatever, and it froze another lightning bolt. I mean, it could just be telling us that, but I think we're going to get a callback to that. And here's the thing, remember, if we still have to get the answer to who blew the horn, and that proves there's going to be some type of time travel, then who's to say we won't travel far enough back to where we see Faye while she was healthy? You know? I think it was, I don't know if it was said in Ragnarok or 2018's or what, but didn't Kratos and Faye meet because they almost fought each other or something? I can't remember. But I think we're going to go back to where we see how Kratos and Faye meet. I don't think we're done seeing about Faye. And if we do have time travel mechanic at some point in a future game, then that opens up a whole world of possibilities that they can go with on this. I mean, I don't think we've even begun to scratch the surface of what this whole story arc is going to be. I mean, remember on the panel that we saw at the end of 2018 and the panel that we see in Ironwood about Atreus's, like, his whole life or whatever, his destiny. Remember the ending? I mean, the part where we see Kratos like dead or dying on the ground, and Atreus is holding his head in his lap and he's saying some type of prayer. If you look at that, if you look at the like the garments or the armor or the clothing that Kratos is wearing, it doesn't look anything like any of the armor from God of War 2018 or Ragnarok. Norse armor. To me, it looks like Egyptian garb. Looks Egyptian to me. Or it could be like Mayan, but I think it's Egyptian. Which, by the way, is the last pantheon on the panel if you go in clockwise. And also, if you look at his carving, it looks like he don't have, because see, in other parts of the mural where they show Kratos, he's got the ashy white skin, but in that part he has his normal skin color, like he is human again. I mean, if you think about it, the only way he's going to be able to die is if he somehow becomes human. Now, if you remember, while God of War 2018 was being developed, they, I think, released a video or something, or maybe no, I think it's in Raising Kratos, where it talks. I think Chris Judge is talking about how he got the part. He said, his agent called him or whatever and was like, "Hey, there's a part." And he's like, "A video game," and then he read the like part of the script or whatever. Anyway, there's a point on there where, because at first they were gonna make an Egyptian game, but there's a point on there where you can pause it and read part of something where it talks about, I think, a god who has become human again is fighting a shit. What's the name of the creature he's fighting. A harpy, I think. It's a harpy. I'm not sure. Anyway, and he kills the creature right as the creature mortally wounds him. And it talks about the son is cradling his head in his lap, saying a prayer. And I'm like, dude, that's exactly what's being portrayed on the mirror. Anyway, I'm rambling again. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I just love God of War. And as I play these games, I just have theories just running through my head. But I'm rambling again. I'm starting off by how, I think Barlog is directing them. Anyway, listen. So they bring him back to the studio to reinvent the franchise, right? He writes the entire story, right? He makes God of War and then he's just done. Like, no, he's not just done. Now, granted, he did write the whole story, but here's the thing. If they were making the whole entire thing and nothing but Norse games, then yeah, he could probably just pass it on to other people, but it's other pantheons. So here's the thing you gotta ask yourself. Ragnarok was the last Norse game, okay? Which means the next mainline game is going to be a whole new pantheon, which means everything has to be reinvented all over again. Just like they had to do with 2018's. I mean, everything's going to be, I mean, Kratos will pretty much look the same, like the same type of build, but his look might even be different, Like they gave him the beard and thing because it matched, Norse, but his facial hair might change. The whole like armor set will be different, you know? Maybe he'll wear helmets next time. Maybe there won't be shoulder guards or waist guards or wrist guards. Maybe it'll be like shin guards and helmets. I don't know. But that's all going to be different. Every single enemy will be brand new. There's not going to be Draugr. There's not going to be Revenants. There's not going to be Nightmares. There's not going to be anything that we fight here. There's not going to be, anything that we fought in God of War 2018 or Ragnarok is not going to be there. It's all going to be 100% completely different enemies. All that has to be remade. You know? I believe that something's going to happen to our weapons. I think the only weapon that we're going to take with us is probably going to be the axe, maybe the blades. Only because the blades have been with them since day one. I think it'd be stupid of Santa Monica to like get rid of the blades. People would probably riot or whatever, but same thing with the axe actually. But I don't think he's gonna be taking Draupnir. Maybe he'll take Draupnir, because a spear, the next Pantheon actually makes sense. I don't know. But you would think we'd have to get another weapon, maybe. I don't know. But the gods will all be different. And the thing of it is too is you gotta think the Norse pantheon is the only pantheon that has like different realms, right? This next pantheon won't have different realms we go to. So how are they going to make it to where we can play through the whole game and not get bored of the way it looks? Obviously, you can have different like locations, biomes. We go to this part of the land and it's deserty and dry and rocky. You go to this part of the land and it's all lush and woody and foresty. You go to this part of the land and it's all cold and snowy and icy. You go to this part of the land and it's all like swampy and muddy and shit. I don't know, but and going to different parts of the same land will in essence be like traveling to different realms, you know. But that's the only thing I can think on how they would do that. But I'm rambling again. Think about it. So he makes God of War 2018. Like, I mean, not just him, obviously, but the way it came together and everything that's in the game all had to be signed off by him, right? So when it came to making Ragnarok, right, the blueprint was already there, right? Because Ragnarok is exactly the same as 2018's. I mean, yeah, we go to a couple of different realms that we didn't visit, and Midgard obviously looks a little different because it's ice, and there's a few different enemies, but it's all pretty much the same. It's the same character models, the same look and feel of it. You know what I'm saying? The blueprint was already there. So it's easy to say, hey, you take this, just follow the blueprint. The way I like to describe it is think of it like somebody who builds furniture for IKEA. Like, hey, we need a new wardrobe. And they get this woodworker to create a brand new wardrobe. And IKEA's like, boom, that's perfect. Now, when we go to IKEA and buy it, it comes with a set of instructions. But think about the person who built it the first time and had to like come up with the instructions, right? So, when we buy that piece, we just follow the instructions. But when it comes time for them to build a brand new other piece, are they going to have a different person do it, or are they going to have somebody who they know did it good the first time? And that's the same thing with these games. Like Barlog had to think up everything from scratch, right? And for Ragnarok, not that I'm taking any credit away from Eric Williams, I'm not. But for Ragnarok, let's just say the instruction manual was already there for it, right? So when it comes to making the next game, which is essentially going to be another reinvention because everything about it pretty much is going to be brand new, are you going to have some random person who hasn't done it yet do it? Not that I'm saying they couldn't do it. I'm just saying, or would you rather have a person that already did it once do it? And not just that they've already done it before, but this is the person that wrote the whole freaking storyline out. You know what I mean? Now, this was my theory since God of War 2018, but ever since I watched that DICE interview that Barlog and Neil Druckmann just did, they just released it on YouTube a few days ago, that just almost proved everything I said. Because in there, I think Barlog asked Neil, like, how do you approach making games? And he was like, do you think about a sequel as you're doing it? And Neil was like, no, I think about this game and that game only. I don't think about a sequel. I think about the game that I'm making as if it's the last one I do. And Barlog was like, I can't do that. I have that Charlie Day syndrome conspiracy theory thing. And what he was saying was like, and he talked about how, you know, it's very hard for him to remember everything that he put in her because, he likes to put things in games that you won't find the answer to until later. And it's hard to remember everything that you did because, people come and go and things change and it's very hard, and you hope it comes together the way you have it in your head. And I was like, he's proven everything that I was, not that I came up with that idea. Like I said, I heard him say it in an interview, but that proves that he is hard at work on trying to make all these games come together cohesively because there are things in the first few games that we won't get the answer to until the later games. And it's just that I don't see how he has to be the creative director, even if he himself ain't gonna be the ones that physically direct the games. He still has to be like extremely involved in the creation of them because he's the one that wrote the whole story, and he's the one that's got to, put the pieces of things where they go because, you know, he put things in the first games that won't happen until the later games and blah 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 blah. And it seems highly unlikely that he can do all that, but hey, like, hey, while you guys are all doing all that, I'm gonna go over here and make this sci-fi game real quick. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Now, granted, Santa Monica has over 450 employees. That's obviously enough to have two teams, right? And obviously, I don't think everybody wants Santa Monica to just do God of Wars from here on out. But if you think about it, besides The Last of Us, all Naughty Dog has ever done is Uncharted's. And everybody still loves Naughty Dog, you know? Like, if all Santa Monica did from here until like the next 30 years is like God of War games, would that really be such a bad thing? I don't think so. I mean, you heard him himself say the reason why they decided to make two games in the North Saga instead of three was because it took 5 years to make the first one. It took like over 4.5 years to make the second one. And if it took about that same amount of time to make the third one, you're looking at 15 years to tell one story, he said. And remember, he's got to go to a different pantheon and then another pantheon after that. And he's also trying to tell this whole story because he's dripped some things into the first games that don't happen until later. So he has to see it to conclusion. And if it takes 30 years and he's going to do 3 games in the next pantheon, 3 games in the, it's freaking 60 years before you get to the end. You know what I mean? Just can't do that. And so it's like, all right, it takes like 5 years to make the first game of a new pantheon or whatever, and then like 3.5 years after that. Because see, Ragnarok technically only took 3.5 years to make. They delayed it by a year because of COVID and Chris Judge needed surgery or whatever. So it really only took 3.5. But if you got two teams at Santa Monica, you know, you could have two God of War games at different stages of development. So that way, I mean, think about it. It's already been uh, over. It's been like what 2.5 years or something. Almost 2.5 years since the release of Ragnarok. You know what I mean? So whatever game is coming next, But here's the thing. Let's say they were working on because you remember that state of play or whatever they did, and at the end of it, we had an interview with Eric Williams and Barlog, and he was like, "Yeah, we're working on a number of things that I wish I could tell you about, but I can't." Anyway, they're obviously working on the next God of War, but what if they were working on the next one after that as well? They're just in different stages. So that way, we wait 4 years for this next God of War to come out, but then 2.5 years later, the next one after that comes out. Because I think Barlog is anxious to get these made as quickly as possible, as we fans are. And I just don't see him saying, "Oh, well, in the middle of us doing all of this, I'm gonna go over here and make this sci-fi game real quick." Because if he did, what if that game ended up being a smashing hit? Well, now Sony's gonna be like, "I want a sequel to that too," and it's like, and if you've watched the DICE interview, in that interview, he said when he makes a game, he is so invested in it, like day and night, that it like literally drains his soul or whatever. I don't think he said that, but he said that it takes so much out of him that when it's done, he just has to like step back and take a break for a while. And I'm like, and then it just clicked. I'm like, that's why Eric Williams directed Ragnarok. He literally needed to take a break from it for a minute. Like I said, he was still involved because he's the creative director, but he just needed to step away from like the directing duties for a bit. But now, since he's had his break, I think that to me reinforced my theory as to him making the next God of War. He took his break, now he's back at it. I think Barlog is making the next God of War. I think everybody's expecting him to come out or Santa Monica come out oh, here's the sci-fi game we're making, and I know you could be like, well, look at his Twitter handle or his picture or whatever, and he took a picture in front of a sign that said space this or whatever, and it's like, look, that doesn't mean jack. That could all be to just throw everybody off. I think he's making the next God of War, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like I'm right, I'm like, well, shit, I was, if it turns out that he is, I'll be the first one to come out and be like, well, damn, I was as wrong as one can get. But I'm just saying, I think he's making the next God of War. I think he's making the next God of War. I mean, the guy sleeps and breathes and bleeds God of War. I mean, he loves this franchise dearly. Pours a lot of his heart and soul into it. I mean, remember when Eric Williams was doing interviews and he was interviewing and he was like, I might get in trouble for this, and then he said something, and it's like, you're the director of the game. You should be allowed to say whatever you want to say. But if he's in fear of getting in trouble, then that means somebody above him that is in charge of this franchise would not like him saying certain things. And it's like, well, obviously, yeah, the head of the studio, Yumi Yang, whatever, and people at Sony, but I think it's Barlog. He's creative director of the studio, or head of creative, or whatever, at the studio. But, yeah. Just because somebody is, like, billed as the director doesn't mean, like, they're the sole person in charge of the title. I mean, remember when Chris Judge was like, when I heard it was Eric Williams and not Barlog, I was like, I quit. And he's like, Barlog was like, no, Eric Williams is really, really good. You can trust him. And like I said, I'm not trying to take anything from Eric Williams. I know that's what it seems like it is. I know it does, but I'm not, you know. But it's like, I bet Barlog was like, no, I'm still heavily involved. Okay, I'm the creative director. A lot of the decisions still have to go through me. I'm still the head of the snake, as it is. So I'm just not the one that's going to be physically in the in the studio or whatever, the mocap stage directing you. I mean, it's going to be Eric Williams, but it's still going to be me like calling shots. And he's like, oh, well then okay, I'll still do it. That's what I think. And I think they just, because he needed that break. I mean, and they needed to pick somebody to do the directing duties. Eric Williams was just the logical choice. I mean, he's been around since the very first God of War. He's literally been at the studio for every single God of War. He knows everything about the history of the franchise and the story of it, and it's like, he'd be perfect. And it's not like he didn't have any say about anything that was in the game. He himself said in an interview, he's like, yeah, there'd be plenty of times when I have an idea. I'd run it by Barlog, and he'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Sometimes I'd run it by Barlog, and he'd be like, nope, I don't like that. And we would argue. And he's like, sometimes I'd be like, well, I'm the one directing, so, and he'd just walk out the room. Now, whether or not any of that's true, probably not, because obviously creative director has the final say. But, so I'm not saying that Eric Williams didn't bring some pizzazz or whatever. There's no telling what ideas of his made it into. Maybe him getting the spear was his idea. I know some of the fighting styles was his idea, like the whole, like, throwing your blades out and then, like, pulling yourself to the enemy. I think that was his idea, which, by the way, I use. Not That's how I play the game. Like, if you do that move where you throw your blades out to an enemy and then it pulls you to them and hits them, it creates a lot of stun. You can do that so fast back to back that you can put somebody in stun and then kill them. It's a godsend on the higher difficulties. Seriously, you should try it. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think Barlog is making the next God of War. I think Garm has something to do with the crack and such and such. I think we're gonna, there's gonna be some time travel mechanic going on in the game. Maybe not us physically being able to travel back and forth in time like freely. It could be something that happens like through a cutscene or something, but we obviously still will get the answer to who blew the horn, you know? And to get that, we'd have to go back in time because it wasn't us that did it. And if we get the answer, that means. Now, granted, it could be when we get the answer to that, it could just be we meet somebody somewhere. Like, it could be Angerboda. We could be talking to her one day, like, oh, yeah, that was me. I needed to talk to the serpent real quick. Like, oh, that was you? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was always wondering who blew that horn, and now I know. And it could literally be something that simple as how we get the answer to that. But I highly doubt Barlog would go through the trouble of dripping that piece of information or whatever into the very first game and not give us the answer to that until like the third or fourth game for it to be something so insignificant as an answer to that like that. I honestly believe when we get the answer to it, it's because we, and I say we as in like Kratos and Atreus, will physically be at that point again, which would obviously require us to be able to travel through time. Which, just because the mask got broken into pieces and sucked through the crack, doesn't mean that's the last time we're going to see that mask. I mean, it was written in language not from the Nine Realms. We know Atreus is traveling to lands not in the Nine Realms. If I think the crack is one of those cracks that Garm can create, then and Garm or Fenrir is still on our side, and we can use him to open up portals to other lands, there's no telling that we won't have him open a crack to go to a land because Atreus is in trouble. We go there, or if it's an epilogue section where we play as Atreus, and we go to this new land, and all of a sudden, right there on the ground are the three pieces to the mask, and we're like, holy shit, this is what flew through the crack in Odin's lodge. And here it is at my feet. Oh my god, it was a crack that you can create. Holy shit. And now we got the mask again. And then, you know, the mask isn't what we need to look through the cracks. The mask is what allows us to step through one of the cracks, one of the tears. And instead of traveling to a different land, we travel to a different point in time. Maybe that's what the mask does. Allows us to travel to a different point in time. I just came up with that idea right on the spot. That'd be awesome if that was the case. You know what I mean? I think in my other video when I was doing theories, I think that's what I was explaining about the whole blow the horn thing. I mean, I'll try to touch on it real quick here. I know I've been talking for like an hour, and anybody who's watched this video probably already tuned out, but I think I mentioned something like, remember when we were inside the serpent and it was being hit by Boulder, and then Jormungandr spits us out at the beach, and Kratos is like, the dead giant. Why did the serpent leave us here? So him saying that right there already gave me the idea that, he didn't just spit us out because, he was being hurt and he just spit us out wherever. That gives the impression that the serpent spit us out at that particular spot for some reason. It's like the dead giant. Why would the serpent leave us here? Now, if Jormungandr spit us out there for a reason, why? What's the reason for that? Well, somebody blew the horn, and we know the horn's purpose is to get the attention of Jormungandr, which means somebody talked to Jormungandr, right? And Jormungandr is the one that left us at the dead giant. So it's not too hard to start thinking where I'm going with this. First of all, how many people in all the 9 realms can speak the language of Jormungandr? Anybody? In God of War 2018, it was just one, Mimir. Ragnarok, it's two, Mimir and Atreus. Now, unless Mimir or Atreus taught somebody else, like Kratos or Angrboda, the only person or persons who could have possibly blew the horn would have to be Mimir or Atreus. Or Kratos or somebody who was just with Mimir or Atreus. I mean, you think about it. Why would Jormungandr leave us at the beach? Why? Well, first of all, Freya was circling Midgard in her falcon form looking for Balder. Now, I don't think she landed on the beach because she saw us there. I think she landed on the beach because that's where she's got her feeling the strongest that her son's around. Okay? When Balder comes walking up out of the water, I don't think he's walking up out of the water because he knows we're there. And he knows his mother's there. Because he doesn't know his mother's there. Because he doesn't even know she's there until she says, "My boy." And he looks over and is like, "Mother?" So he didn't even know she was there. Okay? Jormungandr ain't there. He fell unconscious way the hell over there. I think what it is Jormungandr spit us out there because whoever blew the horn knew that if we weren't there, Freya would land at the beach, Balder would come walking out of the water, see his mother, and then kill her because we weren't there. Now, obviously, she was our enemy, but you can't doubt her pivotal role in us succeeding at Ragnarok in God of War Ragnarok. Having her on our side and doing the things that we have to do to make it through Ragnarok and win was a big help from her. If she dies, she's not with us here in this game to help us, which means we might lose Ragnarok. You see, the ripple effect of Balder killing his mother is bigger than what I think we all can really imagine. Okay? Also, think about this. She uses the dead giant against us to try to stop us from killing her son. And, Atreus is able to call on Jormungandr to help with that situation. But, if we weren't there, well, obviously, if we weren't there, then she wouldn't be using. Anyway, forget that. But think about this. If there is going to be time travel in these upcoming God of War games, right? Then it stands to reason we might travel far enough back in time, back to Midgard, mind you, where we inadvertently stop the blowing of the horn or do something to where when Jormungandr spits us out, he spits us out somewhere else. We go far enough back to where if we are the ones who blew the horn, which I think it is us, I think it's Kratos, Atreus, and Mimir who blew the horn. We go far enough back to where obviously we don't blow the horn yet. We watch ourselves boat into Jormungandr, but watch Jormungandr spit us out somewhere else, and then Balder ends up killing Freya. Now, obviously, he kills Freya, but then do we fight him? Because if we're not there to fight him and prevent Freya's death, then that means we're not there to fight him, and who knows what happens now that Baldur is alive. You see what I'm saying? That also has a drastic effect on Ragnarok. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, the implications of us being on that beach at that moment is huge. Or not being on the beach is huge. And I think that is why whoever blew the horn, which I think was us, that's the reason why they blew the horn. You know, we're all just trying to find out who blew the horn, but none of us is really asking the question, why was the horn blown? Why does somebody need to talk to Jormungandr? It's because they need to say, hey, in a little bit, this person is going to start hitting you to try to draw us out. It is imperative that you spit us out on this beach in front of the dead giant. Okay? And the reason why is because Freya lands there. I don't think she landed there because we were there. Baldur comes walking out. I don't think it's because he knew we were there. He was just walking out of the water. And it just so happens we were all there. We stop her death. We kill him. And the rest is history. It has to be Mimir or Atreus that talked to him. Nobody else can speak the language. So you see what I'm saying? There was a lot of stuff that was put into God of War 2018 that we don't even remotely are coming close to realizing yet. How awesomely awesome it's all going to come together as. Oh, it's going to be these God of War games are just going to get better and more epic as they go on. I'm sorry I've been rambling on for an hour. I still have more theories, but unfortunately, I'm recording this on my PS5, and I can only record up to an hour video, and I'm already at 57 minutes, so I got to end it. But if you've stayed through this whole time, listen to me ramble, thank you. I got more theories. I think I'll make another video probably tomorrow. It's late. But, and hey, if you got theories of your own, please leave a comment. I know a lot of YouTubers say leave a comment down below, and a lot of YouTubers do read their comments, but I am one that actually does read every single one because I don't ever get hardly any. But anyway, please leave a comment. Tell me your theories. I would love to read some of them and then answer something or have a discussion about it. Let me know if you agree with anything I said or disagree. Yeah, but like I said, I'll make another one doing some other theories about where the series might go and such. What are some of the things that Barlog put into the games that we're not supposed to get the answer to until much later? I'll give more theories on that. But yeah, I was just playing this game and I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, I never had the thought about the whole crack under the lodge and the mask and everything until I saw, why did the mask lead us here? And then it just dawned on me. So, you guys can let me know if you thought the same thing or agree with me or whatever. I'm sorry I rambled on. Thank you for listening, and see you on the next one.